What is your name?
My name is Nawang Chuchin.
Can you tell me a little bit about yourself?
Yes, I was born in the independent Tibet, and then I left Tibet when I was only about 10, and then I became a refuge, crossing over the Himalayan mountains, walking all night and sleeping in the daytime, and then reached Nepal, and after Nepal then I went to India, and then in India I joined a Tibetan Refugee school and finished my high school. Then I went to in Chandigarh, Punjab University. I finished my college education, and then I became a school teacher in Tibetan refugee schools in India and in Nepal. Then I came to the United States only in year 2000. And since then I lived in New York and Minnesota, and then I moved to Raleigh, and then finally Cary.
Can you tell us about the situation living in Tibet?
Yeah, when I was living in Tibet, I was born in the southwestern part of Tibet. So Tibet has three provinces called Utsang, Kham, and Amdo. So I was born in the part of Utsang. At that time, the Tibet had really freedom of all kinds of freedom, religious, social, economic, and the political freedom, and also its way of living, not very busy like in the United States. Very peaceful living. People mostly, do the kind of, most of the people are doing farming or they're nomadic, taking care of animals. So there are no such kind of, not so much development in the physical structures.
Yeah.
But then people were very, very happy. There was no law enforcement like police, and no police is there. But then there are no crimes. The social life was really good. There was no I have never heard about suicide and all the murder cases in my entire county. So it was very peaceful life.
What were the differences between independent Tibet and occupied Tibet?
The independent Tibet, as I said, has a lot of freedom, whereas the occupied has no freedom. So let me give you a little bit about a background about Tibet. Tibet the size is very large. It's very big. About the size is about 7 times of France.
Oh wow!
Or you can say so, but the population is so small, only 6 million Tibetans.
Yeah.
So, in 1949, China became communist country, and then they slowly started invading the neighboring countries. And they entering Tibet, and from the eastern part of Tibet, and then they sent their communist cadres, and try to politically indoctrinate, the entire Tibetan people, and then they started coming to all the villages. For example, they started sending to the villages, and then they tried to rob the little bit of wealthy people in the villages, and then so in my story, in my case, my village was a very, very tiny village when I was 10. Only about 20 families. Maybe total population could be only 100 people in the entire village. So in that village, my family was a little bit wealthy, as compared to others. We had about 1,000 sheep, a huge land. We had 2 lakes, the family owned. So when the communist China came, their cadres, the military, with guns, and the one translator comes, and then they asked to gather all the village people, and then they asked my father to stand up, and then they used to tell them, okay, this man cheated you, so he's very rich, whereas you people are very poor. Okay, so now we are going to make you equal. So he doesn't deserve 1,000 sheep. He doesn't, because you guys even don't have even 10 sheep, whereas he has 1,000 sheep. So we will give all these sheep among all of you. And he has 16 rooms. He doesn't need his family, because mine was a joint family, So he needs only 1 room. And my father said, okay, this is not fair. I didn't rob them. I worked my parents, my grandparents, my ancestors, they worked very hard. And so I earned this money. So it's not stolen from them, not robbed from them. And China said, you have a very, you are very talkative, you are very, and they started kicking him, hitting with the rubble. Yeah. Then he looked like this, oh, you have an evil eye. And one of them took out an object, kind of pointed object and thrust on his eye. Yeah. And his eye started, bleeding, and then immediately, instead of taking him to the hospital, they took him to the local prison. And my uncle went to plead to release him, and he was also arrested. Yeah. So then later, due to the worry, the shock, my grandmother, she had a heart attack, she died. Then my mother and my uncle, we fled the village and tried to go towards Nepal. And on the way, my mother also died. So this was a kind of situation. Before that, as you said, that before the Chinese came, the people in the village life was so very, very comfortable. All the people live on the agriculture or the looking after the animals. Like my uncle used to look after the animals in the mountain, where my father used to look after the agriculture field. So we worked during the summer and the entire winter, no work. People live there. People just enjoy meals, and they have their circle dances, music programs, Buddhist teaching, and so very, very comfortable life. And then all of a sudden, when the communists come, they started, taking away all these possessions. Then they said the religion is a poison. They said they started destroying all the Buddhist monasteries. Yeah. So 6,000 monasteries were there. They completely destroyed, and so only 15 monasteries were left. So slowly, so in 1959, 10th March, the Tibetan people rose against the Chinese government, and so 80,000 people died on the same day. And then around same number, 80,000 Tibetans fled the country and became refugees in India, or the Nepal, Bhutan, like these small countries. Mm-hmm. So the comparison between the independent Tibet and the occupied China, in independent country, people have freedom of religion, freedom of speech, political freedom. But right now, under the Chinese government, there is economic freedom. Yes, you can do any kind of business, but then no political freedom. If anyone says a free Tibet, he will be arrested. And then, if you say someone, even there no religious freedom. If someone says the Dalai Lama's take name, you will be in jail for 5 years. So their policy is religion is a poison. Yeah. So these are the two differences. No freedom at all now, except the economic freedom. No religious, no language, no political. But then during the independence, all those freedom there. But economically, I cannot say Tibet didn't have the modern facilities that we enjoy here.
Yeah. Were you involved in any efforts to change the situation?
In Tibet, not really. Yeah. Because I was too young.
Yeah.
I was only about 10. So as soon as the Communist China they came, the military actually, they were People's Liberation Army. They came and all over Tibet occupied them. So people had nothing to do, nothing to say. So except, along with my mother and uncle, we had to leave and we came to Nepal. And then briefly I was in Nepal, then went to India. Mm-hmm. But in India, especially after finishing my college, then I was really involved in a lot of these free Tibet activities. In India, there is an organization called Tibetan Youth Congress that is actually working for the independence of Tibet. Mm-hmm. The freedom of Tibetan people. So I joined them in 1970s, and eventually that has branches, 47, I think, now I don't know, that time it used to be 47 branches all over India and the world. So when I went to Nepal, before going to Nepal, in Dharamsala, India, I worked in the central office of this Tibetan Youth Congress, Central Executive Committee. So then I participated a lot of protest marches in Delhi, the capital of India. And also we organized a lot of meetings, and in fact I collected signatures of 100 Indian members of parliament supporting independence of Tibet. Tibet. So that I was able to do with a friend under the help of this Tibetan Youth Congress. And then when I went to Nepal, again I was unanimously elected as the local chapter of the Tibetan Youth Congress as the president. And the first time in Nepal, we took a procession, and some of us were arrested by the Nepalese police. And then, but we were detained for briefly, and we were released. And then we were able to organize one Tibetan performance, cultural performance. We started so many projects, like to get support from the local Nepalese people. We planted trees. We did some social work in road cleaning, blood donation. Members did, and we organized a massive soccer tournament among all the Tibetan communities in Nepal. So I was able to do during my 3-year term in Nepal.
Yeah.
Then after coming to New York in 2000, again in 2001, briefly I was again elected as the president of the Tibetan Youth Congress in New York also. So, but then I was able to organize one of the March 10th, on March 10, 2002, Tibetan Uprising Day.
Yeah.
So I was organized that one, and also we organized one cultural performances, because through which we can inform the world about Tibet.
Yeah.
But then I could not complete 3 years term because I found a new job, which doesn't allow me to be president of a political kind of organization. So I left, and then when I came here to Raleigh, and my daughter was in Broughton High School in the actually when she was only 16, 10th grade, and we two jointly actually organized the first Free Tibet kind of procession. We went to the downtown Raleigh, and then went to the Legislative Assembly and the Governor's Building. We went around, and once next year we had a procession through NC State, Hillsborough Street. So those, and then I used to write a lot of articles on the newspaper. So those are some of the activities that I was able to do in exile.
Going forward, would you have any insight or advice on the future of Tibet?
Yes. Anyone in Tibet is, as I said, Tibet's land is so big, population so small, and militarily we are really too powerless. So we have. So right now the situation in Tibet, so Tibetans, we cannot do much to get freedom to the Tibetan people inside Tibet or here. So we are ready to do. All the Tibetans are doing something, whatever they can, but they depend on the support of other people like you guys are doing, and all over the world, especially in the United States. There is an organization called the Students for Free Tibet. You can also become a member. The headquarters in New York. So through that, now what we want is actually, right now many people all over the world don't know much about Tibet. So there's a lack of information. So we need actually, my desire is actually, all the students, professionals, if they take interest about Tibet and know the actual situation, whatever the historical background that you asked me today question, and also then if they know what are the situation, there are a lot of actually information. You can read books. There are a lot of books written by Dalai Lama, Freedom in Exile, or so many books on Tibet. Or there are movies like Freedom, like Kundun or 7 Years in Tibet. These give you the historical background. Or if you go to the web, there's a news like Phayul, P-H-A-Y-U-L. If Phayul.com, you can see the latest information about Tibet. Or there's the Tibetan Political Review. Or even if you go to the Google, there's a Tibetan government in exile. So you get a lot of information, and if people started disseminating the information all over the world, in your friends, discussing among friends, so that is my desire, because then the people can support. Tibet doesn't need economic we need economic support. Economic support is not that important. The important right now is the Tibetan need to spread the actual truth about Tibet. And then, although some of the villages in Nepal, India, the Tibetan villages are very poor, and like young students can go there, act as volunteers, volunteer teachers, teaching just only English language or science or mathematics in the elementary school, middle school, like that, whatever And when you grow up, when you finish studies and when you are employed, if you go on a vacation to Tibet, visit Tibet, part of Tibet, like a lot of Indians are going to the Mount Kailash, or if you go to the Tibetan capital Lhasa or visit all parts of Tibet, and then if you can try to get the correct information, and if you could write articles about your visit or produce some films, documentaries, or or discuss group, that would be very useful. And then if you try finally, when your project is complete, whenever the Dalai Lama comes to the US, he comes here quite often. If you try to, through the Office of Tibet in Washington DC, if you try to meet the Dalai Lama, you can say boldly, 3 of us made a project on Tibet. We have a document here, and we present it to the Dalai Lama, and he will be very happy.
Yeah.
So that is actually very good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.